Welcome, everybody. I think you're at the right panel. This is Korean Edtech Powerhouse for Edtech. And we have a pretty distinguished panel here today that represents a broad spectrum of education. My name's David Yee. I'm the CEO of RID Labs, which is the international arm of RID Inc. So RID, we recently got funding from SoftBank's Vision Fund, but we're an AI company that empowers education through data analysis, and we do a lot of cool stuff. Anyways, but today it's not about us. Today it's about Korean EdTech and our audience and panelist members here. Without further ado, I actually want to introduce our panelists here. I do want to point out a few things though, quickly. So I said that we have a broad spectrum here. I know it might not seem that way, but we have a broad spectrum. We have all parts of education represented, K-12, we have college, we have adult learning. We have also the seasoned professionals that know the landscape. We have investors here. And we have all types of series of funding here, A all the way through D, right? The alphabet. And we have a lot amount of information to share with you. So again, without further ado, you've heard me talk too much. I'm going to pass this on to this beautiful lady to my left. Could you please introduce yourselves, your names, and tell us a little about the company that you're a part of?
Hi. Whoa, sorry. Hi, my name is Eugene Chung, and I'm the COO of Enuma. We develop autonomous early education programs in early literacy, math, and English as a foreign language to empower all learners to receive quality foundational education.
Hi, also my name is Eugene. The people who have the name Eugene is like awesome in Korea, just to open that out. My name is Eugene Choi. I'm CEO and co-founder of interactive learning platform Classroom. We started as 2 female founders in tech, and currently we were chosen as Forbes 30 under 30 this year, and just yesterday we were announced as 100 company to watch by Forbes, which was very exciting. Yay! So we're trying to expand globally due to the pandemic. We've been spreading over to 24 countries with over 4,000 institutions using Classroom, and we are really excited to make impact and changes in the education industry.
Hello. Hi, my name is Jade. I am from Ringo. It is a one-on-one English tutoring platform for intermediate to advanced learners. I started at Ringo as an English tutor, and I tutored for over 2 years. Fell in love with the product and fell in love with the team. And I recently joined their San Mateo office to lead their global expansion and investor relations.
Hi, Patrick Brothers, co-CEO of Holland AQ. We're a market intelligence platform for education globally. We work with governments, universities, firms, and investors around the world. Really focused on the global market, and at the moment, really focused on Korea.
Hi, my name is Bom-Soo Kim. I'm a managing partner at TransLink Investment, which is a Korea VC fund with about $150 million fund size. We invest both in Korea and in the US. And education is not our current fund's primary focus area, but I think I deserve to be here because of 2 reasons. Number one, I once was an EdTech startup founder in the San Francisco Bay Area from 2009 to 2015. Number two, I have been raising 4 children through in the public and private education system in the US. Don't pity me, 2 are already shipped through college, so I'm only responsible for 2 of them now. So I'm very excited to be here and then have conversation about Korean EdTech scene with all the other founders.
What did I tell you? Well represented, right? All right, thank you. Bom-Soo, I did not know you had 4 kids. It's amazing. Wow.
I don't advertise that usually.
Okay, well, look, I have a question for you panelists, okay? So what is the core problem that you are trying to solve through your company, through technology? I'd like to hear this. Since we went in this order, should we start from you, Jade, and come up?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
So I think it would make sense to talk about Ringo's mission and then the business model. So Ringo's mission is to break down language barrier bridge the cultural gaps, and allow talented individuals to exchange knowledge. And Ringo was founded out of a frustration that our two co-founders felt themselves when they flew over from South Korea to Stanford to attend the MBA, and they felt that fluency gap, and they cursed their fate for not having lived in the US long enough to be native levels fluent. And then they also thought, well, wait a second, why don't we just create a world where you can master a language without having to live at that country, because talent should not be confined to territory, and create a world where language, especially English, doesn't serve as a barrier but a stepping stone to your global career. So that was the vision. It sounds really big. But the business model of Ringo as it stands today is pretty simple. We connect learners who are often Asia-born, non-native professionals who are decent speakers, but they're lacking the last 10 to 20% fluency to really sound like a native, like the many speakers you might have seen today at this summit, to tutors who are often sourced from top 30 universities in the US, who have been native all their life, and also may be able to match the desired subject interest of the learners. So that's what we do. So far, we have 13,000 plus paying users, which we've grown 3 times every year since 2016. We have over 1,000 tutors, and recently, in June this year, we closed our Series A, $18 million. So we're very happy about it.
Cool. Wonderful.
So as I've explained before, we started as students back in 2017 as college students attending school. And I don't know if you guys remember your first time in class in college to ask questions or to engage with other students or teachers. It's quite frightening, isn't it? And then you have to write an email to your teachers, and you can't just ask them questions. You have to be polite and write the right email. And that really frustrated us because as millennials and Gen Zs, we don't really communicate through email. We actually, like snap, or we just send a text message, or, it's very simple communication. But when you come to college, everything is so hard to communicate. So we wanted to make a really simple product that would allow us to communicate with peers and to teachers and, bring that engagement level up to where we want it to be. So we kind of erased all the barriers of emotional and physical barriers that we have and created a very simple communication tool, but we wanted it to be cool. So a lot of the tools that we see before, they're very early 2000 UI UX vibe, and we wanted to create something that was very cool so students would like to use it. So we incorporated a lot of the social media aspect into our product, and we wanted to just have users love our product and bring that up. Currently, we are used from K to 12 level up to corporate education. We kind of expanded into different markets since 2017, and millennials and Gen Zs cover up more than half of the workforce and also the education industry. So it has been a great journey from us. And now we are doing online learning to video, live learning to communications and so on. So throughout the pandemics, we have seen that really need of communication. I think everyone, like even parents, would have experienced that. Like, what are they doing? Just watching their teachers online. We kind of brought that engagement and communication level like right up there, and it kind of helped a lot of the students and teachers and even admins and schools to bring that offline setting into the online.
Eugen?
So our company was founded 9 years ago by a husband and wife team who were game designer and developers. As you know, Korea is very well known for its gaming industry. Their inspiration was their son who was born with special needs, and this was the time when the iPad was just coming out. And they saw what kind of digital tools are available for children with special needs out here and were appalled, basically. So they wanted to build an application that works on the iPad for young children like their son, who typically is in the normal distribution curve on the very left end of the spectrum, that they can use to learn independently foundational skills. And that's how Enuma was born. Our flagship product, Todo Math, Todo from the Spanish word all, meaning all, took off. Like if you studied design principle, they always say you should design for the extreme user, right? So it became a universal product that took off. We ranked #1 in over 20 countries, Apple education and children's category. And with that, we realized that we could actually expand our mission from serving children with special needs to serving all learners, especially early learners who typically are in the margins of society. So the next big step in our journey was actually being part of the Global Learning X Prize competition. I don't know if you know about the X Prize. They put out these seemingly impossible challenges for people to tackle on. So the challenge was, can children in remote villages of Tanzania learn how to read and write and do math just through a software on a tablet? So we embarked on this journey in 2019. We were one of the co-winners for making the highest learning gains and the highest engagement of these kids over 15 months. It was a randomized control trial. So with that, now we are on a mission to become the market leader of our B2C product, which is the Toto Suite. We have Toto Math, Toto English. We're going to launch Toto Korean soon. And also an impact side of the business where the long-term goal is to really provide a universal digital early education product that governments and ministries of education can use, especially in the developing country.
Thank you. Wow. What did I say? Yeah. You know, I can't help notice, but you guys have amazing English, you know, right? That's something that I think some of us, hear, right? As a startup, and especially if it's Korean, they have this idea that maybe as a Korean English, you shouldn't speak English this fluently or whatnot. There is that sense. And they see Korea as not necessarily a global scene. Some people might think that, whereas it is. So RID itself, for example, I went through this quite a bit, is that our mission is to get rid of inequalities, inconsistencies, and inequalities, and inefficiencies. So it's inefficiencies, inconsistencies, and inequalities. We're trying to get rid of it. I think we all share some missions like that, where we're trying to make a universal impact. It's not just an impact in Korea, it's a global impact. So can you talk a little bit about that, like your journey from Korea to global? Can we start from here this time? Go this way?
Sure. Actually, our company was founded in Berkeley, and we have offices in Korea, China, and recently opened one in Japan, and preparing to open one in Indonesia. We started out targeting the global market from the way beginning. But I think initially the focus was probably developing countries where parents could afford iPads. But now, especially now with COVID, there is a global education crisis that existed before that's now exacerbated with COVID. Even before COVID, I don't know if you know this, 7 out of 10 children in the world don't have basic proficiency. That number becomes 80% in Southeast Asia and 90% in Sub-Saharan Africa. They're illiterate. So that's where we are looking at right now. Our plan is hopefully in the next 5 years or so to develop our product, which is the comprehensive local literacy, English and math product in the top 10 most used languages around the world, academic languages, and that'll cover about 2/3 of the world's population. So that's what we're heading for.
That's amazing. So you were global from the get-go. The only coincidence is that the founders, the husband and wife, were Korean by ethnicity. Cool. Eugene. Eugene Chung and Eugene Choi.
So our school, so I went to a university academy called KAIST. It's a Korean Advanced Institution of Science and Technology. And our school is taught 100% in English. So all the classes are in English. And we have hundreds of international students flying into Korea to learn tech and yeah, so it's a really cool environment. It's a very small institution. So when we actually started the platform, we had to start it internationally because everyone spoke English and there were a lot of international students who are being taught in our school. So we had a great test bed to begin with. And then in 2018, we have attended in the Microsoft Imagine Cup, which was held in Korea, and then APEC regionals and to the world finalist, where we got to make that. And then we were understood that the problem that we were trying to solve is not a problem that is only in Korea, but it's like global problem that students would have, regardless of if they're shy or how they learn, or if it's a teacher's way of teaching. There are these problems that students and teachers face in engagement and also in communication. So we kind of learned that it's a global problem and issue. So from 2018, when we started, we kind of knew that we had this vision and a mission to solve this. And in the end, Classroom's mission is to spark the power of learning together. So we wanted to bring that togetherness inside a class where it's happening all around the world, and getting the meaning that why we are learning from each other, why we are in class together. There's no reason to be in a class together if you're not going to learn from each other, for teachers and with students. So we wanted to bring that together, and starting from 2018, we started that. And in 2020, when COVID hit, we kind of wanted to help out with the education, our community, our family. So we put our product for free, our premium version for free for about 8 months. And we kind of spread all around the world globally, helping out institutions, teachers, and students in need of these products. So we were really proud that we could help so many people. And we were reached out by so many institutions and teachers and students thanking us. And it was a great feeling that we kind of got to give that impact that we wanted, and that's why we started our project. So we kind of had that really good start from our institution, where we kind of could have gone globally to begin with.
Right, so I think Ringo also, our mission, business model, and technology isn't confined to a region. Our mission of teaching language learning is tough. The solutions to language learning may be fragmented, but the demand is universal and the struggle is real for everyone. And I think CEO of Duolingo yesterday mentioned that there are 1.4 billion English learners worldwide. And I think among this crowd, it is pretty well known that tutoring is one of the best ways to reinforce any kind of learning. And the technology of connecting those who need to know something to those who already know it is also not confined to a region. I think we just applied it starting from a niche of South Korean professionals, because that's what our two co-founders are. They know the culture and the language very well. But now we are starting to look into some global expansion, including Vietnam, Japan, India, Turkey. You have it.
I mean, this is, I think, a perfect time to start asking more from the investor and, from Holland IQ side of things. We would need to hear a little bit more about Holland IQ, but I just want to make an observation. I mean, it started in Berkeley, right? It started at KAIST in Korea, where all the classes are already in English. I mean, the founder was at Stanford, when it all started. So there is a stream of connectedness in that we want to make a global, universal impact in education. That's the only thing that was common. And maybe there was some ethnically Korean person here or there. Pretty cool. Well, Patrick, could you please tell us a little about yourself, and could you describe for us the landscape?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Ladies are talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I was just reflecting, listening about unpacking for everyone our thinking about why we're leaning into Korea, and trying to unpack why we're getting a lot of inbound from financial and strategic customers who are asking questions about Korea as well, because it's on the map. And thinking that through, EdTech is a $300 billion global market growing at something like 16%. And we would expect outside in Korea to be a big part of that. And it feels like today it's underweight compared to where it should be, but growing probably faster than the global market. And at least my thought process is, just as you've demonstrated, like Korea's global connectivity is just incredible. I mean, you've got companies like Samsung, industries like gaming, entertainment, technology. When you think about those industries and where Korea has succeeded, they're in kind of cognitive content domains. It's a very advanced economy as well. And so I've learnt from all of you, Korea is also much more mature in a education sense, private education and also education technology and education services, having gone through the maturity phase that I think peers like China's only going through now, and has probably kind of drowned out some of the focus across East Asian peers over the last 5 to 10 years. We were all kind of just breathless at watching all of the investment going into China, and now we're seeing some of the superstars, in Korea. And so that at least is the logic in my mind, other than in so many dimensions, as I understand as well, South Korea is a highly competitive market, and so it breeds really strong entrepreneurs, businesses who are global, and global first. And it's not hard to see why Korea is and will be really successful in EdTech when you look across other industries that have very similar characteristics as well. So that's what we're doing, a Korea EdTech 50 this year. We want to shine a light on the teams. I mean, also because we want to learn more ourselves. Like, what is the secret sauce that you guys are cooking up? Because I suspect that Korea will be a real force to be reckoned with on the global EdTech stage.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Have you been to Korea?
I have. It's been a while.
Wow. Korean food is pretty popular around the world too, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Good karaoke, lots of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, so we want to move on to Pomsu-nim. So could you give us your impression of the overall market landscape?
Right. There's one thing that I'd like to kind of, add to Patrick's viewpoint, but I'm going to talk about something else first. So let's take a step back and think about what makes Korean EdTech startups, the ecosystem, unique compared with that of other countries. I can think of 2 reasons. First, the business model, the EdTech startups business model in Korea is relatively simple. Very few EdTech startups tries to improve the public education system. Korean parents have lost hope to improve the public education system when I was young. So they were not depending on the government doing a better job. Instead, they allocate more household income into their children's education. So a lot of EdTech startups are kind of doing the competing against each other like any other startup in any other industry area does. So I think that's good. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just that's a fact in Korean market. So I think that's one unique thing. Number 2, because the money has always been spent in private education in Korea since when I was young. So if you are doing a good job, then you can make a lot of money from doing the private education service, offline or online, it doesn't matter. So from early stage VC's perspective like us, whether or not to invest in an EdTech startup in Korea is a pure financial decision. You don't worry about, you don't think about social impact that much. There are a couple of social impact VC funds, but not as many as we see in the US. So all the Korean VCs consider EdTech, that business sector, as in the same way as they look at other industry sectors like B2B SaaS or e-commerce, gaming. So that actually offers a better environment for early stage EdTech startups to do a lot of different experiments because early stage funding is there. So I think that those 2 factors make Korean EdTech startups environment very unique. And a lot of startups have been successful in the past 2 decades in Korea. And coming back to Patrick's point of Korea has been successful in what they made in Korea, exporting it to the foreign countries like the US. True, yes and no. So it's yes, but the sectors, if you think about the sectors that Korean companies have been very successful in, are mostly hardware businesses that everyone in the world use the same product. So the TVs in America are the same TVs in Africa or in Korea, right? So Samsung has been very good at it. But to be fair, the Korean companies, it still remains to be proven, remains to be seen if any Korean companies, large or small, can can localize the product that they develop in Korea and then make that a mainstream product in the US or any other country. So I hope that I'm going to see that happen, and then I think there is a good chance, but that's something that, I think that edtech startups in Korea have to prove down the road.
That's a very, very good point and astute observation. And we're going to do it, right? We hope to prove.
Can I add?
Yeah, please.
I think one industry that has proven to do that is the gaming industry, and we're very familiar with it because our founders are from the gaming industry, where the product was built in Korea, but they localize it and be able to go really global. There's, I think, more on the company side, two other benefits that we see. Although we're headquarters in the US, our subsidiary in Korea is actually the main hub of the development and the design. What we see as a benefit of Korea is, one, because like Pamsu mentioned, of the high usage of education, but for us especially early education, about 70% of children younger than 7 use supplementary education that are privately paid for. Recent study says about 30 hours a week. It can be mostly academic, it could be other arts subject. But what we find is the talent in Korea, so whether you're an engineer or a designer or a system designer, they're all past users of supplementary early education, or their parents who are now purchasing all this. So we find the whole product development and design process to be really easy because they're first-hand or very, very close second-hand user. Second thing is the customers are extremely sophisticated about education products. So when we launched Toto English, the customer service inquiries that we get are at the level of some curriculum expert. It's like, oh, this word was not covered in the app. How come it shows up on your worksheet? Or I understand level A through C is lexile, reading, whatever. What is it for level F? How does this translate to the Oxford reading level, right? And we feel like if we succeed in the Korean market, we get a big stamp of approval. And on top of that, due to the recent kind of popularity of Korean culture, especially in Southeast Asia, and the long history of Southeast Asia looking into Korea as like a economy that rose up from the Korean War, they're very favorable towards Korean culture. So we feel that anything that succeeds in Korea would be easier to scale in Southeast Asia, and especially for entrepreneurs or investors. A lot of times people think the Korean market is too small, but the way we see it is Korea and the whole Southeast Asian market.
So, Eugene, you described Korea very well, almost like a lab, and which is great. I mean, can I actually ask the other two about that? Korea is an IT powerhouse. Korea has a lot of activity, sophisticated users who have a lot of questions and can actually. So how did that affect your businesses?
I just wanted to double click on the sophistication part of the parents because I think they're the big drivers of demand. And these parents and their parents are the ones who really started the global trend of immigration and study abroad. And I think as that goes on, each subsequent generation of parents better understand the need to start learning early and immersively. So a typical thought will go, if a parent went to the US when they're 20 years old for a study abroad, they're going to come back and think, I'm going to send my kid to the US when they're 16. And that person is going to say, well, I came to the US when I'm 16. I'm going to have a child here. And that person is going to be like, I'm the first generation to be born in the US. My child better be octilingual, and so on and so forth. So it seems to be that this global trend of globalizing your career, there is an acceleration of that, and we bring it earlier and earlier to the child's education, and it really expands the market, although it might seem like it's only South Korea.
That's a good observation. Did you want to say anything about how your business was impacted by all this buzz in Korea?
So as you guys know, that Korea have the world's fastest internet. So when they download something on their app, or if there is a service launching, they expect it to be fast, and they also expect the UI UX to be great. So it was really interesting to do a test bed in my school where all students are an engineer or they're somehow attached to they're in technology, so they would actually like read our code as well, which was very interesting. So they will give us some feedback on like, oh, you guys should fix your code like this way, or they try to hack it. So that was very interesting. So when we actually first building the product, we got critical feedback on our UI UX that would compare it with other products, send us feedback on how we should make it better, especially in design aspect, also the coding, and it was very great for us in the beginning of the first year when we tested our product to make it into a very global but high standard of product where everyone can use it and feel like, oh, this is a really good and well-made like furnished product. So I think that's one benefit in Korea, that we kind of get that product test, as Eugene has mentioned, that we got that feedback really quickly.
Yeah, we've definitely felt something similar with @RID too.
Hey, David, can I chime in?
Yes, of course.
So what these three co-founders just said, I think that it's true, the level of sophistication of education service users in Korea, that makes it a great testing bed. But I think that that can also play as an obstacle when a Korean edtech startup to go global, because can we really expect that level of sophistication from the users, which to when we go to other countries, right? One of the things I said that I was an edtech startup founder more than 10 years ago, and then one big mistake that I made was it was a B2C education service for high school students in the U.S. And then I was assuming, my hypothesis was that the pressure to get into the top tier colleges in the US, that US high school students are getting on a daily basis, would be like at least a third or a quarter of that of Korean students. What I learned after first 2 years was that it was like less than 1/10, or even extremely saying it can be like 1/100. So if we are so used to such sophisticated audience in Korea, then can we really transfer that value proposition of our service in the less sophisticated, less motivated audience in other countries? That's, I'm not skeptical about it. It's just something that I would like to see how how it unfolds.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they're aware of this. I think, like you said last night, this generation of edtech startup founders, we have hope. And you hope to be proven that way, right? Okay, well, speaking of edtech powerhouses, Patrick, you had alluded to China. So when you think Asia edtech powerhouses, you think China, Korea, they come under, a few countries come in, but let's just talk about China and Korea for a second. What do you think of the current, there was a recent news about Chinese, regulations, about restricting private education. How do you think that'll impact the global edtech scene? Patrick, if you might make a comment about that, and then anybody else that wants to take that up, please.
Yeah, I think, such a complex topic in some respects. There's no doubt it's a massive collapse compared to where it was, and a massive change. And I think might still be too early to draw too many conclusions, other than we know, we have customers such as Tencent and a lot of local investors, and they're all looking for other spaces to invest. I think what's interesting is back in 2018, I remember, we take executives to China each year to understand that market. There was a lot of people looking how to get into the Chinese market, and Tao New Oriental and co were also trying to work out how to get out. It kind of feels like not many people are going to be trying to do that for a while. And China, in some respects, will be reinventing itself. Having said that, the vocational market and the workforce market we're seeing there is really booming, and upskilling, and that's happening everywhere. We've seen it here as well, right? And I think the government has as much incentive as the companies and SOEs to drive that, right? Every country wants upskilling and wants amazing productivity. So how will it affect it? Look, there's some cross-border investment, but there's not heaps, and there's not a lot at the early stage. All of the early stage investment is predominantly domestic investors. Sure, you're going to get your SoftBanks and co doing cross-border stuff, but that was kind of mega deals. I hope it doesn't impact the sentiment of edtech in other markets, and I don't think it is. And I think this is kind of a great example of people are looking to Korea and saying, you know, Korea is so grown up from a regulatory perspective compared to China, especially in education. And so it's exciting to think, okay, if that market's already been through those growing pains, you know, potentially the tailwind we're seeing in EdTech globally means markets like Korea is ahead of Japan, in my view, as well, can leapfrog further ahead. And I take, you know, Bumsu's point around it remains to be seen, but you can see the determination and the, you know, incredible people that we've got here. I'm bullish on that translation being made. And the Southeast Asia piece is a really, really great example. I would back a Korean EdTech over so many other countries at being able to actually localize and expand in Southeast Asia than from other markets, for sure.
You seem to have a thought?
Well, I just wanted to share a fun fact. Korean government banned all private tutoring in early to mid 80s. That is a fact. And so that's how my parents didn't have to spend a dime in private tutoring for their children, because it was illegal back in those days. So, you know, Korea has gone through it, and we did a lot of experiment, but such an extreme measure has not been taken after that. So it had lasted for 5-6 years, if I remember correctly. So what China is gonna do from now on, you know, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that, but I don't think it's gonna last forever.
Thank you so much for that. We're just about out of time. We're running out, so please, can we get some closing remarks from our entrepreneurs?
Sure.
And as well as everybody else.
I think continuing the thought about the China policy, I think the way we're thinking about it is governments have the best intentions when they make the policy. So they're trying to reduce the competitiveness of the affluent people spending money and then widening the disparity. We believe as education technology companies, we have a powerful tool to solve the real problems of education. And sometimes deliberately or inadvertently, we end up widening the equity. So in these times, we're rethinking about, are we really solving the hard problem? And as a continuation of that, that's why we're focusing on the developing countries, the low-income immigrant students in Korea, doing programs with them, so we can really address the core problem, which is access to quality learning, and especially for early learners, getting that foundational learning.
So we kind of like gathered together yesterday to have a little talk, and what I realized was that I feel like our classroom is like second or maybe third generation of EdTech in Korea. A lot of things changed from my generation to Bumsu when he did his education startup as well. Like technology has changed, the perspective of startup has changed, how entrepreneurs actually try to solve the problem, and the government investment has changed. A lot of things has changed in Korea, and it gives young generations to actually step up and solve the problem that we are facing in Korea, but also globally as well. And that gave us a chance to actually try to make changes and make impact. And I think it's a great start for us in Korea right now, that we are trying to change the game globally. And as an EdTech startup, we wanted to bring that impact not only in Korea but globally as well. And as like ASU+GSV Summit has said, I think it's like a family, like it's an EdTech industry as a whole, that we try to like change this together. So I think that that's the vibe that I got when I was attending the summit, because last year it was through online. So when we did the Elite Cup finalists, we didn't get to come here offline, but coming here today, I think that we are getting that closeness, and I feel like really great what we will be achieving later in the future. So I hope that we can like all get in touch and be able to just see us grow.
Right, so not to be so sappy and personal, but going from an immigrant at the age of 11 to knowing zero English to being good enough at it that I can teach other people my second language, and now working for a platform to proliferate the same type of learning that I needed and my parents need it. It's been quite a journey, and now I'm sitting here talking about it with all of you guys. It's been a quite journey, and it's a journey that I share with my team. What we do at Ringo is deeply personal, and I think I speak for my team when I say we're very excited to be at the forefront of the next Korean edtech growth with these brilliant peers and brilliant investors. Yeah.
Would you like some closing comments?
Nothing. I'm super excited to do our Korea EdTech 50. I really want to drill into like the categories that we're seeing strength in and momentum in, and just super impressed at you guys as well.
I love my job as a VC because I always meet new talented entrepreneurs like themselves. And I've lived in the US for the past 18 years, and then, you know, although I love Korea, and then I still have my identity as a Korean who grew up and lived until at the age of 33, but I don't want to stick to being Korean. I want to see more Koreans seeing themselves as world citizen first, and then, you know, as a Korean. So kind of a sub-identity of being a Korean as a world citizen. I'd like to see that happen more often. And then I think that it was pretty hard for my generation back then, because Korea was a developing country, but Korea is now one of the richest countries in the world. And then when I see these young founders, I feel that, okay, so such a day that I was hoping for a long time may happen in the coming, 5 to 10 years. So I look forward to seeing that.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your time.